Picture this. You wake up in the morning already feeling behind. Before you've even gotten out of bed, your mind is running through everything you need to do today. Emails, meetings, errands, calls, deadlines. Then, as the day goes on, the list doesn't get shorter, it gets longer. By the afternoon, you're staring at your tasks, paralyzed, not knowing where to begin. Every option feels urgent. Every decision feels heavy. And the cruel irony is this: the more overwhelmed you feel, the less you actually get done. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Modern life constantly demands more than our brains are built to handle. But here's the key insight. The problem isn't the size of your to-do list. The problem is the way your brain is holding it. And the fastest way to break free of that suffocating pressure isn't to magically finish everything. It's to offload the weight from your mind in one surprisingly simple step. A step that takes less than a minute and instantly restores a sense of control. Let's start with a scientific truth that most people overlook. Your brain was never designed to store dozens of tasks at once. Neuroscience shows that the working memory, the part of your mind that holds active information, can only juggle about 3 to 5 items effectively. Beyond that, it begins to overload. When you're trying to hold 10, 20, or 30 tasks in your head, your brain doesn't just get tired. It begins to trigger a stress response, cortisol rises, your focus fragments. You feel like you're drowning, even if some of those tasks are small. And here's the paradox. Even though the brain can't manage all those items internally, it keeps looping them over and over just to make sure you don't forget. That's why you can be in the middle of something important and suddenly think, "Oh, I can't forget to pay that bill," or "I really need to reply to that message." The brain is screaming reminders at you, not because you're disorganized, but because it doesn't trust itself to keep track. This is the real source of overwhelm. It's not the tasks themselves, it's the constant mental juggling. So how do we solve it? With one counterintuitive action, you stop holding everything in your head and you give your brain permission to let go. In other words, you unload your mental RAM. The simplest way to do this is with what I call the 1-minute brain dump. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You take 60 seconds, grab a sheet of paper or your phone's notes app, and write down everything that's swirling in your mind. Big tasks, small tasks, random reminders, it doesn't matter. The goal is not to organize, the goal is to capture. You're taking the swirling cloud of "I must not forget" and externalizing it. And here's the magic. The moment your brain sees those items in a trusted place outside itself, the stress loop ends. You don't have to keep rehearsing them internally anymore. Your nervous system relaxes. You feel lighter, calmer, more in control. Nothing about the tasks has changed, but everything about how your brain is carrying them has. Why does this feel so powerful so quickly? Because of something psychologists call the Zeigarnik Effect. This principle shows that the brain tends to keep unfinished tasks active in memory, replaying them until they are either completed or recorded in a reliable system. That's why you can't stop thinking about an errand you still need to do, even if it's trivial. Your brain treats it as open, but the moment you capture it externally, on paper, in a note, anywhere you trust, the loop closes. Your brain says, "I don't need to keep reminding you anymore. It's safe." This explains why writing things down can instantly bring relief. You're not just making a list, you're closing dozens of open loops, and that relief is disproportionate. It doesn't just make you a little calmer, it can make you feel like the mountain has shrunk into something manageable. Now let's turn this into a simple mental model you can remember. Capture, clear, choose. First, capture. Spend 1 minute unloading everything from your mind onto a page or screen. Don't filter, don't organize, just dump. Second, clear. By externalizing the swirl, you clear your mental RAM. You've told your brain, "I have this stored, you can relax." Third, choose. From that list, pick just one thing to do next. Not 10, not 5, just one. Because once you choose one, you've shifted from paralysis into momentum. Capture, clear, choose. That's the loop. And what's powerful is that it doesn't take hours to do. It takes a single minute. In fact, the faster you do it, the better it works, because the goal isn't perfect organization, it's immediate relief. Let's make this concrete with an example. Imagine you're at your desk, drowning in tasks. Emails are coming in, messages are pinging, and your mind is screaming, "Don't forget to send that file. You need to book that appointment, call your mother back, prepare for the meeting." You feel frozen. Now you grab a scrap of paper. You spend 60 seconds writing it all down. Send file, book appointment, call mom, prep meeting, maybe a few more, that's it. 1 minute later, your brain breathes out. The swirl has stopped because it's no longer floating around in your head. It's contained. Then you look at the list and pick one thing. Send file. Suddenly you're moving. That forward motion creates momentum, which makes the next task easier. What changed? Not the size of your workload. What changed was the way your brain was holding it. You shifted from mental chaos to external clarity. And that shift is everything. This small act has bigger implications than it seems. When you practice Capture Clear, choose regularly, you're not just reducing stress, you're building trust with yourself. You're teaching your brain that it doesn't have to keep running endless reminders because you have a reliable system. That trust compounds over time. You stop living in a state of low-grade anxiety, always afraid you'll forget something. Instead, you live in a state of focus, knowing that everything is captured. And when you have focus, you not only get more done, you feel calmer while doing it. This is why some of the most productive people in the world swear by externalizing their thoughts. They know that the brain is for creating, not for storing. Your head is a great place to have ideas, but a terrible place to keep them. Once you accept that, you stop seeing overwhelm as a personal weakness and start seeing it as a systems problem with a very simple solution. Here's a question to reflect on. How many hours of your life have you lost to the fog of overwhelm, staring at a list in your head that only gets blurrier the longer you look at it? What if you could reclaim those hours, not by working harder, but by giving your brain permission to unload? What if, instead of carrying everything all at once, you always had a clear process to capture it, clear your head, and choose your next step? That's the promise of this 1-minute practice. It's not just about feeling better in the moment. It's about transforming the way you relate to your tasks. From chaos to clarity, from weight to lightness, from "I can't handle this" to "I know exactly what to do next." That's the power of something so small and yet so life-changing. Here's the deeper truth. Overwhelm isn't just about having too much to do. It's about feeling like you have no control over where to start. That's why the Capture Clear Choose model is so powerful. It doesn't magically erase your responsibilities, but it instantly gives you back agency. When you capture everything, you externalize the chaos. When you clear your head, you remove the fog. And when you choose one thing, you reintroduce focus. Agency is what your brain has been craving. Once it knows you have a process, it stops screaming at you. And that shift from chaos to control happens in less than a minute. It feels almost unfair that something so small can create such relief. But that's exactly the kind of disproportionate return that makes a habit stick. Let's zoom out for a moment and look at why this works so consistently. The human brain thrives on completion. Every time you finish a task, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine, a chemical reward that says, "Good job, keep going." But when you're holding dozens of unfinished tasks in your head, your brain never gets that completion signal. It only sees open loops, which creates stress and drains motivation. By capturing those loops externally, you trick your brain into feeling that some of them are already handled because they're now safely stored. Then, by choosing one and completing it, you get the real dopamine reward, which builds momentum. This is why even the smallest action after a brain dump feels so good. You're feeding your brain the two things it needs most: clarity and completion. But here's a subtle pitfall to avoid. Don't confuse the capture process with creating the perfect to-do list. The power of this method isn't in making everything neat, it's in making everything visible. If you spend too much time polishing the list, you can fall into another trap of procrastination, endlessly organizing without acting. Remember, the goal is relief, not perfection. That's why the 1-minute brain dump works so well. It's quick, messy, unfiltered. It bypasses your inner perfectionist and gives you instant clarity. Then, once you've chosen one thing to act on, you can decide later whether to organize the rest. But you don't need to wait for perfect organization to move forward. In fact, moving forward is what makes the rest easier to handle. Now, let's connect this back to your daily life. Imagine building a ritual around this. Every morning before you start your work, you spend just 1 minute dumping everything onto paper. Or every evening before bed, you do the same to clear your head for sleep. These tiny rituals transform your mental state. In the morning, you start with clarity instead of overwhelm. In the evening, you sleep with a calm mind instead of replaying tasks in your head. And the beauty is, it's sustainable. It doesn't require willpower or hours of planning. It's 1 minute, which means you'll actually use it. And because it works so quickly, you'll want to use it again. That's how it becomes a habit. And once it's a habit, overwhelm never builds the same way again. It doesn't disappear completely. You'll still have busy days, but you'll always have a release valve, a way to empty the pressure before it crushes you. There's also an identity shift hidden in this practice. When you use capture, clear, choose consistently, you stop seeing yourself as someone who can't handle it all. Instead, you start seeing yourself as someone who knows how to handle pressure intelligently. You become the kind of person who has tools, not just problems. And that change in identity is powerful. Because the more you trust yourself to manage overwhelm, the less overwhelm has power over you. It stops being a monster and becomes a signal that it's time to pause, unload, and reset. That's what resilience looks like in the modern world. Not avoiding stress, but knowing how to release it and refocus in seconds. So here's the invitation I want to leave you with. The next time you feel the weight of too many tasks pressing down on you, don't fight with it in your head. Don't waste energy trying to juggle everything mentally. Grab a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and spend 1 single minute capturing it all. Then take a breath, feel the relief of having it outside your mind, and choose one thing to do. Just one. That's all it takes to shift from paralysis to progress, from fog to clarity, from pressure to calm. And the more you practice, the faster it works. Over time, this becomes your secret weapon against overwhelm. You'll no longer be someone who drowns in endless lists. You'll be someone who knows how to rise above them, 1 minute at a time. And here's the beautiful irony. Once you stop trying to carry everything in your head, you realize you were never as overloaded as you thought. The weight wasn't in the tasks, it was in the way you held them. Change the way you hold them, and you change the way you feel about them. That's the essence of real productivity. Not doing more, but carrying less. And that begins with one deceptively simple step. Capture, clear, choose. So don't wait until the next crisis of overwhelm. Try it today. Try it right now. Take 1 minute, unload your mind, and see how it feels. You might be surprised at how quickly the fog lifts. And once you feel that shift, you'll know you never have to be crushed by overwhelm again, because now you have a way out.